All right, so they actually do have an alternative title for this. So this is about the wonderful world of how to do crime. So the alternative title is how to run your own shitty cybercrime empire and almost certainly get arrested. So this is all about the wonderful world of like account hijacking and how the actual criminal ecosystem of that works, which is something that I've been studying for a while. Because I always wondered, who the fuck buys stolen Netflix accounts and stuff like that, and why does anybody care? And turns out that it's big business. So the mandatory who am I slide, I'm a security researcher consultant and cat caretaker. And just a word in advance. So this was originally written as a short talk, but and then I expanded it, and then I brought the short talk slides instead of the long talk slides because I'm a fucking idiot who brought literally the wrong laptop. So this one is missing all the really nice flowcharts and stuff that look like an economist made them. So this the slides are a bit shit, but that's fine. We'll deal with it. As for what I'm talking about, it's so, as some of you are familiar with stuff like account takeovers and stuff like that, is this exploding problem on the internet. Anybody who's been in the industry for a while is aware that stuff like credential stuffing fueled by some of the big data leaks is a huge problem. If you run a service that is of any interest to anyone, somebody's going to be trying like 1 billion leaked passwords against it, and that's just the thing we have to deal with. And it's also kind of funny in that the victims are everyone. Like, I've ran into security professionals who've been victims of, like, account hijacking and stuff, like, where their Netflix has been used by some idiot somewhere, because third-party data leaks have just resulted in a password going somewhere. It's a huge problem, and it's one that we don't really do much about, like, as an industry, because it's not cool like ransomware. It's just this silent little problem that exists and is really important. And it turns out it affects fucking everyone. Like, this is a thing that it just affects everyone. Now, this is kind of the equivalent of... So I was trying to find a way to equate it to normal crime, and I discovered that it's kind of similar to, like, volume crime in terms of how we equate it. Now, volume crime is this lovely police term that I came across, where it's the kind of crime like burglaries and shit where they don't really investigate and give a fuck because their funding got cut. It's like, the crime that happens to everyone, where it's not like homicide or bank robbery. It's like, we won't even come out and have a look because can't be fucked and we don't have the money for it. So it's like, it's the crime that happens to everyone all the time. And I'm sorry if there's any coppers in the room, but let's be real. It's not, it's not deemed a priority. And this is literally the cyber equivalent of this, because nobody gives a shit that somebody hacked your Netflix account. Your Netflix got jacked and some 16-year-old in Brazil is, using your Netflix. Who gives a fuck? But it turns out this happens to everyone all the time. And turns out there's a whole ecosystem, there's a whole fucking economy based around this type of crime. You've got people who sell database dumps. You've got people who sell combo lists of potential credentials to use. You've got websites like the one the feds shut down recently, WeLeakInfo, where you can buy to have search access to databases from hacked websites. You've got software developers who write specific tools. They write configs for these tools so you can target websites like Netflix and Spotify and try get loads of accounts. You have entire companies that their only service offering is selling proxy services so that you can route your traffic through 1 billion compromised computers or whatever. You have people who sell tools to engage in post-compromise monetization strategies. Like, what the fuck do you do with 10,000 Spotify accounts? I mean, you're not going to listen to 10,000 fucking bits of music at once, are you? No, it turns out we got ways of making money with this shit, You've got strategies for, making money out of stolen accounts on some random service, and et cetera, et cetera. And there's like a whole little economy there. It's fucking fascinating. It's just really interesting, and I thought I'd try share that with y'all today. So let's say you're a miscreant with of bad judgment, and you want to get into this business. It's really simple. you've got kids these days who get in, and the business of cracking, and yes, finally we can call hacking cracking, because that's what it is. I know we had that argument a few years, quite a long time ago, but the quick start guide to getting into this economy is you buy or obtain some combo lists or database dumps, you buy or obtain some proxies, you get OpenBullet or Sentry or whatever fucking piece of shit software you want to use, you get the configs for Netflix, Spotify, whatever, you click the run button and you're committing crimes at like 10,000 crimes a minute. And then you profit somehow. And that's it. You've got like YouTube tutorials for days, which are like, oh, download this, run this exe, import this text file, click go, and bam, you've done crime. It's trivial to accomplish, and it turns out it's big business. So I'm going to go through what some of the little bits of this economy are, and how this whole ecosystem functions, and at the end a couple of bits of how we can unfuck ourselves. But we'll start off with like the first one. If you're going to do like massive amounts of credential stuffing, and try compromise loads of accounts, the first thing you need is credentials to try, right? So we've got dumps or combo lists, which this refers to just database dumps of credentials to use. Some random person's PHP web shit gets hacked, or some vBulletin forum somewhere. The database gets dumped, hashes get cracked, ends up in a nice list of email password that you then spray against fucking everything in the hopes it lets you in. So you've got dumps or combo lists which are sold, traded, just put on fucking pastebin. These are obtained just by script kiddies and little idiots hacking random web shits just to get the databases. They end up being parsed or converted into just, lists of email password or username password. And sometimes you buy them as raw dumps. Sometimes you buy, you can go and literally go shopping for, 10k email password, that are sold as just the raw dumps, or sometimes they'll have been parsed and converted into a nice usable list that you just click and drag in. And these are for sale for fuck all. $10 will get you 20k random passwords and emails that you can then spray against everything, in Payable and whatever shitcoin you prefer. And this is all fueled by lots of hacking using SQL injection mostly, which is now 21 years old as of last night's party for it. And shit tons of low-level hacking done at a fucking massive scale, a phenomenal amount of crime just happening that nobody gives a fuck about. And you've got kids and you've got YouTube tutorials showing you how to use fantastic tools like this thing. So this is amazing, right? I fucking love this. This is a tool called SQLi Dumper v9.5. There's versions of it going back to the earliest version I found was version 4, and this is a tool that the little scrub lords use when they want to, when they're too lazy to use SQL map. No, they've got a fucking GUI that arguably works a little better than SQL map because it's faster. And all they do is they stick in a list of websites, just that they get from doing Google queries and shit. They click crime, basically. They just click the fucking scan button, it goes and it comes back to you and it goes, well, we found, a bunch of websites of SQL injection. Then they click into the next little tab. So you've got the URL queue where you feed in a billion URLs, you click scan, and then it goes and it shits out this list of, here's the ones we can do SQL injection on. And this is a screenshot taken from a tutorial on how to use it. There are YouTube videos and fucking blog posts for days on how to use this shit. And then you click dump database, and it just fucking does it. You can even click only dump columns like email, password, go. And next thing, you've just got credentials raining from the fucking sky, and it's the crime button. And it's amazing. And this is a thing that, it's just a thing that, that people seem to be doing. And, you look up, how to find Fortnite combo list on fucking YouTube, and you'll find, a video guide where you've got somebody typing into Notepad and probably some shit music, and they'll be oh, and here we've just committed 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 violations of the Computer Misuse Act. And this is if you have, if you don't want to buy dumps, you can just go get them yourself, because we still haven't solved SQL injection, which is, as I think was Aaron pointed out earlier, a damning indictment of our industry. The tooling is idiot-proof. You can be the biggest numpty in the world, and you've got point-and-click software with GUI written in Visual Basic that will do the crime for you. So if creating Google Dorks is too hard, no, the kids these days have made tools to build Google search queries for you, where it'll come up with keywords for the kind of shit you're interested in, combine it with a list of, like, in URL, blah, 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 .php, question mark, blah. You click it and it'll shit out a text file of, here's the Google queries you can run that'll probably get you what you're looking for. And then you drag that into another GUI tool, which uses a headless browser to do the Google queries for you, because why the fuck do it manually, right? And then you just drag and drop the output of that into the fucking crime tool, click the crime button, and away you go. It's like, you could teach small children to do this. You could have, like, a farm of, like, primary school kids just, there's your little criminal empire. This is, like, the most trivial shit. And, of course, maybe you're too lazy. Maybe you can't be fucked with, the 3-step process for doing, like, the start of crime. So maybe you decide you want to go buy your dumps instead of somebody who's doing this. So you go to a company like Criminal Enterprise here, and they're the best cloud-based combo list and database provider with the most known and highly reputed platform where you can get high-quality combo lists and databases collected by our experienced hacker team. And these are, criminal enterprises set up by teenagers, and they just go and do all the little hacking for you and then give you lists of creds to play with. And you pay like $50 a month, and you get like 20 new databases a day or something off these guys. And you could just, store-bought's fine too if you don't want to, bake your own crime. You can always just pay somebody else to fucking do it. And that's one of the things that I found fascinating about this, that so much of this is outsourceable. If you can't be fucked doing the really, doing the crime, you just outsource it. You act as, you can be a broker between, maybe you don't know how to hack websites, but you want to sell databases. You then can broker between people who do the hacking and people who buy the database. You can just sit in the middle and, make money either side and stuff. And you've got fucking loads of little criminal enterprises. Sorry, I keep thinking them as legitimate businesses because their business model seems more sustainable. Because there's no shortage, like when it's supply and demand, we've got no shortage of SQL injectable websites, and we've no shortage of scrub lords who want credential lists. So it's, these kids are making bank. You've got like middlemen, like you too can become a dump broker just by talking to a couple of people on web forums and then just buy and sell and trade lists. Like the raw dump data gets sold, resold, repackaged. I mean, it's not like you can get a refund, if it turns out that you bought a load of shit either. So it's like, you can't fucking call up the Better Business Bureau or whatever and go, this guy sold me 10,000 emails and passwords and none of them worked. But it turns out that, ripping, as it's termed, is kind of frowned upon. And it turns out that thieves are actually quite honest to each other. Because I guess in crime, reputation is everything. So you go and, so you go get your dumps, right? You want to do some crime. So you go either hack them or you buy them. And what you need next is where I found it became even more interesting. So next thing you need is proxies, right? So you need lots of IP addresses. If you're going to spray like 1 million login pairs at Spotify, they're going to fucking ban you, right? You're going to get blocked by rate limiting and shit. So you're going to need a lot of IP addresses. So you go to a company like These Crowd who are like, never get banned. We'll give you some residential IP addresses. And I was like, okay, how does this work? And then I started looking at the numbers, and I was like, mate, where the fuck they get, some of these numbers here, like nearly 150k IP addresses in the UK that you can just route your traffic through, etc., etc. And I'm like, hold on a fucking minute. these cunts haven't gone and set up, like, 150,000 fucking accounts of BT. Where are they getting all, how are they, where are they getting the endpoints to route the traffic through? And, of course, you can see where this predictably goes. Crime. And these companies are fantastic, by the way. The residential proxy providers, if you look them up, you'll see that they all claim to be super legitimate. And then you go find them on, like, Black Hat World, where they mention, oh yes, we are partnered with an adware company. And it's like, so it's crime then. But they sell their, like, legitimate companies buy these services for, like, web scraping and shit. And they, you can, you need a pool of residential IPs to do web scraping or whatever? Go to one of these companies. And, like, 50% of their customers are legit, 50% of them are criminals, the business is criminals, and this is where it ties into, like, the broader crime ecosystem of, like, you've got these script kiddies with their account shops that are buying services off companies that buy services off large botnet operators, and it's all quite complex, and, it's all kind of interesting how the shit tier of crime is also, like, tied in with, like, the actual good tier of crime by competent, professional, hardworking Russian crime is powering, like, script kiddie in fuck knows where crime. So, you get your proxies and away you go. Now you can avoid getting banned. And I'm just going to go back to the never get banned when accessing the web. So now you can avoid, getting blocked. So now you've got two components of your crime. The third thing you need is the software to do the credential stuffing, so the software that we use as pen testers and shit for doing, like, brute force attacks is fucking terrible. Pen testers write shit hacking software. No offense, lads and ladies, but what we really should be looking at is the software that some of these crime kids use, because their login testing software is fucking fantastic. Open Bullet, Black Bullet, Sentry MBA, etc. There's a whole suite of different software that's for web application testing, and it's actually just for spraying creds at shit. But these are amazing tools, like, just from a software perspective, like, they're clicky, they're usable, but they're super configurable. Some of them are open source, some of them are commercial, but you can write say you want to brute force Netflix accounts, you can write a config to specifically target the Netflix login page. You can integrate this with a captcha breaking API to work around captchas. You can integrate proxies and shit, and then just load in your creds and spray them, and it works amazingly well. These kids have actually revolutionized certain bits of testing where we're still pissing about with, like, writing a janky Python script to do it. No, these kids have software that actually works. Actually does the job. And, of course, we're talking about, like, the idiot level of crime here. So, if you can't be fucked writing your own config for, say, Netflix, you can pay somebody else to do it. Or if, like, Netflix change a bit of, like, how their web layout works, you're gonna have to change the config. So people sell them. And you can shop around and you'll find, like, configuration files that allow you to attack various services that, they're pre-packaged, like, attack suites, where you just buy, like, the config for, like, Netflix, Spotify, Pornhub, whatever, bang it into the software and you're good to go. And some of them will have, like, as a bonus, they'll integrate with a captcha breaking thing, some will not. Some will, like, not support proxies, some will. So, like, there is varying, and the prices vary. The prices vary within the region of, like, $2 to $10. This is cheap. And, there's literally a whole software ecosystem there, and it's pretty neat to, like, observe that there's, like, that thing. And then we've got the fun problem of, this is where it got really fun. So, how the fuck do they make money out of this? What do you do with, like, a bunch of accounts for random shit? And this is where it took me a while to get answers, and I had to go and actually talk to people, which I fucking hate. You know, you have to message some idiot on Jabber, and you're like, so how do I make money off this? And I had to pretend to be a crook a little bit, and, you know, cosplay as a cyber criminal on the internet, which was a lot less fun than you think, because, like, you're dealing with a bunch of shitlords and little edgy teens who think that they're big shit because they're doing, like, hacking Netflix accounts. And you're asking them, so how do you make money off this? And it turns out that some things like porn site logins, Netflix logins, Spotify premium accounts, VPN services, there's this fantastic secondary market for, like, reselling those. People just fucking go and buy Netflix logins because they can't be fucked paying for it themselves. You know, people are a little bit in the sketchy side of life, but, I mean, they just go and buy it, because instead of paying like your $7 or $8 a month, you just pay $10 and use somebody else's fucking login for a while. And it's not like, I mean, anybody here use Netflix? You know how many people you share your password with? You know, you're never going to change that fucking password. So you got the account for life, because next thing you have to ring your second cousin 3 times removed to tell him, you know, he rings you up going, have you changed your Netflix password? And you're like, haven't spoken to you in 3 years since I gave it to you. If you ever want to, you know, get in touch with, you know, far removed bits of your family, just change your Netflix login. They'll come crawling out of the woodwork. So, you know, you've some shit you can directly sell, and then you've got some other shit which has more involved and lucrative, like, cash out stuff. So I decided to take a look at a couple of these. And some of these are fascinating in their ingenuity, as, like, just the kind of, the level of, like, shall we say, criminal thought that goes into, like, some of the ways they cash out is just amazing. And I was like, shit, that's actually kind of cool. So the first one is, the fuck would you want 1 million Spotify accounts? Well, it turns out some crackers made a service called Lollify. It's a streaming bot. I didn't know that if you publish music on Spotify, you can get paid for it. I never realized this. And it turns out that you can get paid for the amount of times your music gets streamed or whatever. So these fuckers went and wrote a bot that streams your upload to, like, 10,000 different accounts, so you get the fucking ad revenue. And I was like, that's fucking clever. Shit. So they've just turned, like, a bunch of, like, password 123s into Spotify cutting them a check every month. I'm like, fuck. These little shits are probably making more than I do. They've got a successful music career. It's all legit. They probably even pay tax on it. Well, fuck. And they, you know, this is just one of the many ways. It turns out that, like, inflating YouTube views and making revenue that way. There's various other services where if your content's being streamed, you make money off it. And it's, oh. And I don't fully understand some of it. Like, I've no idea how Twitch works, but apparently there's ways to make money through Twitch. And I guess if people are watching you play Minecraft or whatever, but they have bots that will increase your view count. I'm like, well, fuck. These little shits have got it figured out. And yeah, that's just one of the ways that they monetize what I thought was a useless resource. I did not think there was any value in having, like, 10,000 Spotify accounts until I stumbled across this, and it was like, oh. Ah. And then we've got some more traditional fraud. So certain websites, which shall not be named, but we all have used them. The website I'm speaking of in particular also offers a web services thing, and they used to be a bookstore. But so you can buy gift cards from this company using your stored credit card details that they seem to just retain forever. And when you buy gift cards, those gift cards for that website they're, you know, resellable online. And there is an actual legitimate secondary market for if you have a gift card for some service, you can flog it for, like, half the price or whatever if you don't need it. And legitimate secondary market, you know. It turns out the bulk of the available product is crime. And cheeky money laundering. So the simplest way to cash out is you crack a fuckload of accounts on various sites that allow you to buy gift cards through the website using stored payment details. You start buying gift cards and you just flog them online. And it turns out that's an incredibly popular way of monetizing the thing, and it's fraud. And what I found fascinating is when I spoke to some people about this, because there's a semi-legitimate kind of secondary market in gift cards being sold, and there's third-party sites where you can buy like a gift card for whatever fucking thing you want. The websites, so let's say I'm a normal consumer and I want a cheap gift card for a book site that also does web services. And I find a legit seeming website that'll sell me one, £100 gift card for $60. And I'm like, cool, so I buy one. That gift card has been purchased using somebody's hacked account. That person gets refunded or whatever. And web services and books company goes, shit, we're not going to invalidate that gift card, even though we've refunded and whatever because it was fraudulently obtained, because it's now been passed on to somebody and we don't want the bad PR of like cancelling loads of people's shit. So there's kind of this fascinating thing where the person who gets fucked in the end, like John Q. Consumer with password 123 gets royally fucked. And web services company is also making a loss. And the bank's also getting fucked. And you've got some cheeky scrublord somewhere just laughing all the way to the bank. And yeah, that's like a huge thing. Like, if you look on any of the forums, there's like, you get like a PSN gift, sold at like half price. And there's like tutorials on how to set up your own shop for these things, how to automate the process. And the third way to cash out is fascinatingly funny. So it's video game accounts. Online games have stuff like rare items and all this shit that are traded, like your skins in Fortnite or what have you. And in-game items get stolen. Like, say I hack into somebody's Fortnite account or whatever, and they have some rare items that I don't understand how, like, I'm not really a games person, but I vaguely understand you can transfer these things to another user. And apparently people actually pay money for in-game items. So they have direct financial value. And you end up with, like, loot boxes and all that crap. People, like, break into your Steam account or whatever, buy a bunch of crap, or, just give another account all their items and items get sold. And it turns out this is a huge problem. So much so that one of the games companies, one particularly popular mobile game, they had such a problem with account hijacking that they actually incentivized their players to enable two-factor by giving them some rare in-game item that they could only get. It was worth like $10 of like virtual currency or something, but you could only get it if you enabled two-factors. So suddenly they've got all the kids figuring out what the fuck's a two-factor and enabling it. And you've got games companies now having to do security in ways they never thought they would. And I just thought this was really neat. And turns out that, like, for some reason, video game accounts are a popular target for this kind of thing. Because games apparently, like, in-game items are worth money and there is value there. You've got then you've got the direct-to-consumer sales of accounts, which is like the most obvious way of cashing out. Now, this is a screen grab from an account shop that I stumbled across, one of millions of account shops. And this was pretty neat. So you can actually see the prices there. Like an account on some IPTV thing, $6, $10 for a Peloton account. So you can pretend to be cycling or something. I don't know. Adobe Creative Cloud goes for £15. You can steal somebody's antivirus license for $10. VPN accounts are a popular one for sale. This is just a screen grab of like just what was visible in my browser. I scrolled down and it was scrolling for fucking days, You want a subscription of pretty much fucking anything, somebody will be selling it at a cut rate. Like there was every newspaper I could think of, there was like, oh yeah, we got a subscription for that for you. A lot cheaper than the newspaper will be charging you for it. VPN providers, every adult site in the world, you can just get your accounts there and it's cheaper. And also crime, but whatever. And the scale of the problem is, like, it's pretty impressive. If you go on Google right now and just look up the words account shop, just search that, you will find, like, a few. You know, you don't have to go looking on the deep dark web or whatever. No. You just Google buy Netflix account, buy Twitter logins, and that's just out in the open, just brazenly, oh yeah, you want 10,000 Twitter accounts? That'll be a couple of $100. You know, and you can see where that one goes. Or you want a load of Spotify's, you just go and buy the damn things. And yeah, it's just business, I guess. And the scale of the problem is pretty weird as well. So these are numbers that I kind of have estimated based on browsing a couple of forums. I think these are conservative estimates. And this is just, I did have a very, very pretty set of graphs for this, but I fucked up because I'm a numpty and left the graphs behind. So there's at least a couple of hundred account shops that I've been able to stumble across and find, like hundreds, probably thousands of like little shitty smaller account shops and stuff, but fucking loads. Every little idiot seems to be able to run one with no effort. Thousands of people, like literally thousands of members on some of these forums actively engaged in credential stuffing attacks and the related criminal activity, like the money laundering involved, the cash out operations, the database dumping shit. Thousands. Most of them young men. Like mostly teenage boys, from what I can gather. And this is literally like little shit level of crime. Maybe they graduate into real crime when they grow up, but this is actually real crime. You know, but this is like, it's largely little shits like, and they all have Discord channels for the forums, and holy shit, you know, you hop in any of these like account cracking Discords and it's just the most toxic cesspool. It's like, oh, Jesus. Oof. Millions of compromised accounts every week, you know, like we're talking fucking accounts for days, you know, it's just like the scale of like what you can do with some of this software. Like you can test thousands of logins per minute, like on a pretty shit connection through, you know, you can just hammer it out and they're just, it's raining accounts. And like some of the numbers these kids are doing, it's like, fuck, that's a lot of crime. If each one of those was like a computer misuse act by itself, which it is, I mean, you'd be breaking records, you know? If like every compromised account was like one criminal charge, we'd be fucking stacking paper for days just on your charge sheet, you know? Cops probably just let you go because they couldn't be fucked with all the paperwork. I mean, I assume it's like one sheet of paper for each charge, right? So, you know, it's probably like 10 gajillion charges. Somebody just be like, oh, fuck this. You know, this is, the scale of the problem's enormous and nobody gives a fuck. Because it's not ransomware, it's not affecting enterprise, it's affecting the consumer, and nobody gives a shit about the consumer. Because the consumer can't pay for pen testing or whatever. You know, the consumer is not, you know, so nobody's really doing much about it. And there's only a couple of things that the end user actually can do to avoid being a victim of this, and that's what I'm quickly going to go over. So, if you're a consumer, there's two things you can do. You can enable two-factor, and you can use a password manager and stop reusing your passwords. That's all you can do. You're pretty much fucked. Beyond doing that, there's fuck all you can do to protect yourself. You know, you just have to kind of hope you don't get unlucky. And it's really amusing, like, because it's like they're like somebody in the community recently went, shit, I just found out some cheeky little fucker's been using my Netflix account. Didn't think that had ever happened to me. And I was like, happens to everyone. You know, it's like it could be happening to you right now, and you would never know until your recommendations get all weird. Until you're like, hang on a minute, why is my recommendations full of what? And that's the first hint that, you know, somebody has fucking wrecked you, or your account's been sold. You might never realize it because, you know, and it's like, it's kind of like, it's the type of thing where you feel uncomfortable because you've been owned, but it's not doing enough damage to you for you to really care too much until, like, they hit your the unnamed web services company account and royally fuck you by charging, like, 10 grand to your credit card in gift cards or whatever. But, yeah, you can do shag all about this. And if you're a site that is a target of this, and if you run a website that does anything vaguely interesting for users that has accounts, you're going to have credential stuffing happen. I was chatting to a couple of devs at a startup in London that has an app that's like very popular with the kids these days, and they were like, yeah, no, we started getting all these credential stuffing shit, and we have no fucking idea what they're doing with the accounts. We see absolutely no value in these accounts being compromised, but the kids are hacking the accounts anyway. And the kids may have figured out a way of monetizing the fucking thing that the people at said unnamed startup haven't figured out yet. Which means the kids are probably a better, more sustainable business model than the actual company they're exploiting. Which I thought was kind of funny. The only things you can do are make automated login testing really difficult. Which, in the era of the mobile app, you're kind of fucked. Because it turns out a lot of the automated brute force scripts attack the mobile endpoint, the app API and stuff, which you don't really want to stick captchas in your app, right? So, I mean, you can use rate limits, which kind of work, except for the fact that rate limits work based on IP or session normally, and, well, we've got millions of residential IP addresses to use, so fuck that. Same temporary IP blocks. Oh, whoops, I'm using that residential proxy service again, so get fucked with your IP banning. Captchas, oh, we can just farm that out to a captcha farm in Vietnam, and that'll be fine. So I guess the only thing you can do is you can enable users to use, like, password managers and 2FA and be kind of a responsible company, but that sounds like hard work. You have to implement the two-factor, and you have to get rid of your stupid no-pasting thing, and that sounds like an awful lot of work. Can't be fucked. We'll just let the users get wrecked. Not our problem. But yeah, no, if you're a website that offers a service, you have to put the work in to prevent yourself from being a vector for this crime. And you should also probably fix all the SQLi holes that will result in your user DB getting sold for like 10 quid. I mean, data's cheap these days. I mean, there's not too much more to... unfortunately, I don't have all the shiny graphs and stuff, so I will be wrapping it a bit early, but there's a lot more that can be said on this, kind of. But a lot of it's, more so if there's questions, I guess. I could chat for days about, the ins and outs of, some of the account shops and bore you all to death with, the prices of databases, but let's not. So I guess, yeah, I'll wrap it and say if you have any questions or if you want to get in touch, I will be putting up the slides and a series of blog posts about all the little bits once I can actually be fucked finishing the web design thing, because you know what it's like. You can get in touch via Twitter and stuff, but if anybody has questions, abuse, accusations of criminal activity, just go for it.
Mm-hmm. Maybe ask questions now.
Yeah.
First thing, the tool that you mentioned that would do the stuffing, I assume they don't support conduct mutual law, because I was just thinking in terms of the mobile endpoints, if the mobile apps use mutual authentication, then that might be quite a quick win for companies.
Yeah, I mean, you could get some wins there.
And then the tools after they would be
the cool thing is the actual software support for some of the tooling is actually legit as fuck. It turns out criminals do customer support better than certain security vendors. You're more guaranteed to get an answer out of Crime or Us than you are out of Tenable. And their updates are a lot quicker. They ship it, and yeah.
So, and I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are on unique email addresses then for every service.
I'm a big fan of that. Unique email address for every service is a great idea because it not only gives you, you don't get cross contamination, but you also find out when somebody gets fucked. So when you start getting spam to your email address that you only used on one service, that service got compromised. Or, you can use them as canaries almost, which I think is pretty cool. Unique emails, if you run your own domain and you have your own mail server, or if you have G Suite or whatever, website name @domain.com is a pretty legit way of doing it.
I'll ask you that. In the account shops, sort of accounts tied to it.
So most of them, will be like email password pairs. Sometimes email username password pairs from certain, like from web forums. And when you go shopping for accounts, you'll find you'll find it'll all be like list of email. Like imagine a CSV file with just email password.
The account shop service has an AV subscription. Would that not be tied to something through there?
That is normally sold as like, here's an email and a password to log into AVG or whatever.
Yeah.
So you know whose account it is that you've been fucking with. You're like, oh, this is Tim, and maybe Tim hasn't changed his email password either, so yeah.
You've seen any stuff for like it's not this for like Netflix and Disney accounts? Have you seen any corporate accounts? I remember a few years ago there was the same thing, but you basically was going by creds for RDP, for VPNs, etc. How does that overlap into this market? Because obviously this market's more aimed at teens, Netflix users, your average person, but does it overlap? Do you see the same market person selling?
You actually do find, like, there is actually an overlap there in a sense. So sites like the now deceased WeLeak Info, who's the admins that got busted, like last week or some shit. Sites like that, you can target companies by putting in a domain and specifically buy like the passwords that are associated to like a company domain. And you'll also find there is actually an overlap with the RDP shops. So a lot of the kids will buy hacked RDPs, like Windows Box remote desktop creds, to run their tools from. Because the kids are learning about OPSEC now, and it's fucking hilarious. But like, some of those RDP sellers are literally the same ones who will sell you, say, access to company X. They're just selling different bits of the market, but the same vendors.
Is it any price?
I mean,
how much for X company?
So if you start targeting company domain like from an RDP vendor, they're going to rip the shit out of you on price because they know you're looking for something. But if you just say that you want a bunch of domain joined remote desktops, you pay like $2 a pop, and then you have a bunch of companies that you now own. Have fun. Thing is, like, what nobody really twigs is how fucking cheap access is. It's a commodity. There is, like, overlap, but, like, you've got the more serious crooks doing the serious crook things, and, like, the funny thing is, well, you got these teens, like, some of the stuff they get access to, they just don't use it to its full potential, because instead they're after their Fortnites and whatever. Any other questions? Yeah,
just so I work in the finance industry, and we kind of cheesily refer to this crime as a service, whereas you kind of compartmentalise and do different bits. As you've been sort of looking in this area, have you seen indications of some of the bigger, more prolific, professional kind of criminals egging this community on to offering the things that they could exploit, don't necessarily believe their deliverance?
So, yes and no. I have, like, one of the things that we have observed when sitting in the boards is, like, when just sitting there kind of engaging with these people is, like, you do have some people who are more, shall we say, better criminals, right? Like, maybe a bit older, maybe a bit better at crime, and, like, they'll buy up stuff, or they'll, like, sometimes, like, drop hints, and there's almost, I guess you call it, like, criminal mentorship. The odd time, like, you'll have people, like, show you how to set up, like, your own, like, when you're wandering around crime forums, eventually somebody's going to be like, oh, how about, do you want to set up your own botnet or whatever? And you'll find there is overlap in tooling. Like, we've seen shitty keyloggers sold to script kiddies on hack forums being used elsewhere because they're cheap. Like, it's cheap crime. Like, we're talking, like, I know at the moment in security industry land, we have this whole thing about offensive security tooling being bad or something, allegedly. The Twitter nonsense going on at the moment about that. But, like, you can go on hack forums and buy a rat for, like, $20. And you've got, like, you've definitely got overlaps. And you've got, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say that the Russian mafia are encouraging teenagers or whatever, but, like, I think there's related interests, you know.
You say the defence against this is actually quite hard. If, like, people here, so what would be a really good first step that would be recommended to do?
So, one of the first steps for, like, if you're a company that's, like, shall we say, a target of cred stuffing attacks, start trying to mitigate it and just make it expensive. Stuff like I have mixed feelings about the utility of like putting in like temporary IP blocks, rate limiting, captchas, stuff like that. It doesn't prevent, it slows down. And actually put in logging, because you'll know straight away when you're getting lit up by some script kiddie with Sentry when your application logs start going 3 gajillion failed logins. And like allowing users and incentivizing users to enable 2FA and stuff. Like what the unnamed games company did was pretty lit. Like actually putting an incentive for its users. I think keeping looking for it even is like the best start. 'Cause like nobody really seems to look at the, you know, is our API being brute forced? Nobody really checks. Me personally? No, I personally prefer the Pirate Bay.
I have an Amazon account, so it means that you can watch it.
So I actually do have an Amazon account, and so I'm a little bit terrified of, you see, as a much younger and stupider me found out, doors are really expensive to replace. And when somebody uses a big metal key on your door, it sucks. I'm like, yeah, like I kind of find it funny, like that it's almost normal consumers that are just a little sketchy that use like a hack Netflix or whatever. Because I'm just like, aren't you worried that like you're gonna get like a knock on the door? You know, it's just a little. It always kind of sketches me out a bit. Mm-hmm.
How can we encourage the kids that are doing this stuff to do more useful things?
Ooh, how to get kids to not do crime? I'll get back to you on that. When I guess if I can answer that question, I should probably become the Prime Minister or something.
Well, what about the use of third-party identity providers? Obviously, with the privacy implications and things like that.
So stuff like
be able to help, kind of,
like SSO and stuff.
Something like that.
So that can, like, there is actually an interesting thing that I spotted when I was looking through some of the dumps that were made available. When people use like Google as their login to say whatever service, when they use, say you use Google to log into website A, and if website A gets dumped, there's no credentials for you in there. There's just like the token thing, which is useless. And I think that SSO is actually kind of neat for making this shit less useful. Because it reduces the amount of credentials that you're chucking around yourself, you know? It reduces the amount of management you have to do of identities and creds and stuff, but you get shafted on privacy a little. So, yes, and also no. Like, I think that, yeah, because like, if to log into Netflix, you have to use your Google account, that means they have to compromise your Google account to use your Netflix. Which, I mean, password spraying Gmail is actually really bloody difficult, because Google actually are good at unfucking themselves.
Yeah, the bigger organizations probably put slightly more effort into it. Then you're going to train users to enter their Google address into
It's a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, we can do better, but we just have to figure out how.
Vendors are the business model. Identity provider that doesn't eat your data. Sell it to random.
Uh-huh.
In your point of view, why selling fencing system is more expensive compared to buying people? Is it short of the skill or short of interest?
How do you mean?
So selling the fencing system like antivirus or pen testing software or tools is more expensive if you want to do the crime. So in your point of view, is it short of the skill or short of interest?
Kind of both. It's a bit of both. Like, it's not that there's a skill shortage per se, it's misapplication almost. And I think as well, like, there is kind of like, nobody really wants to, sell and then manage customers for software like that, except for people doing crime. There's that's, in my view, it's kind of a bit of both, but it's a bit of a mess as well. Like, I'd need to do some thinking.
Possibly bigger discussion, but from an organisation point of view, obviously you can enable FA to FA and trade users or incentivise familiarise with people. But how can an organisation best start on a journey of gathering intelligence on whether or not this information on their organisation is available? Are there directories of those forums and websites available? And also, sorry, it's a long question. and what are the implications of that for staying on the right side of the board when you're gathered?
So there is a couple of, so that's the first part. There are a couple of publicly available lists that people have compiled of like the more like, somebody has a list of like some of the forums that where a lot of this business, shall we say, goes on. So there are directories and lists, and you can find, like, a lot of it does happen out in the open. And you can find it fairly easily to go search and gather intel. As for the staying on the right side of the law bit, sometimes that can be a bit of a pain in the ass. You'd need to, like, it's one of those things where setting up an account to monitor a web forum or whatever is fine. But you might want to speak with your legal about engaging with people a bit, because depending on, like, how you're engaging with people, like, do you want to do, like, I know some people who will go out and they will, as threat intelligence collection, they will go and buy database dumps. They buy up data, and they see this as fine, but it also could be seen as funding criminal activity. So, like, depending on your in-house, like, or your lawyer really should be consulted. Depending on what level of collection you want to do, like how much you want to engage with stuff. Like, is controlled buying okay? Yes, no. Like, yeah.
Sorry, just one follow-up from that. Do you think there's value in using services such as Record Future? Similar services. People choose to earn the money because they provide that permission to you, and transfer the risk from legal implications.
I think yes, there is some value. Like, especially literally what you just said. They do the risky shit so you don't have to. I mean, I have my own questions sometimes about companies like that, about the validity of some of the data they collect, because the odd time they come out with things that absolutely do not track with my own observations. And they're very closed off about their sources and methods, but they are an acceptable source, I guess. So it's, if you've got the budget for it, yes, is useful. Like, any information, any better visibility is always useful. But I sometimes have my, little niggling concerns in the back of my head where I'm like, is that real? Or are they like, sometimes it's not they're making up BS, it's just sometimes they're getting bad data in, giving bad data out. Especially when it comes to their views on, like, sometimes when those companies talk about the prices of things, I'm like, fucking hell. They saw you coming, lad. Any other questions?
If anyone else has any questions, can you ask at the end?
Oh.